Charmed, anyone? You watch Charmed? We'll have to do that later after we do all the Star Treks. We got a long way to go. But, you know, Leo was a white lighter. And Chris was a white lighter. And Paige was a white lighter. And they could heal with their hands in the bright light. And that's what we're doing. I wish I could heal this channel. Hey everybody, welcome to the D. Louise Book Series channel. I'm Kristina, Kristina. And we do book series. I read book series and I talk about books. I have no special effects. So unlike all those other fancy schmancy channels that can do all the drop-ins and all the graphics, what you see is what you get. It's just me reading books and talking books, and on Fridays we talk Star Trek. And here we are at the end of season 3. Wow. And the Borg are coming. Oh, this is going to be a long episode. So today we are on disc 7 of season 3, episode 173. Transfigurations. Next week, part 1 of the Best of Both Worlds, episode 174, the Borg have arrived. Where is 7 of 9 when you need her? And please don't forget to like and subscribe the channel. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Like I said, it's just me reading books, talking books, watching Star Trek, talking Star Trek, doing a recap. There's nothing special going on here, so I need your support desperately. I don't have a large group of people to support, family, friends kind of thing, so I need the general public to support me in my channel. So we start the episode with no glasses on. Oh well, I don't know where they are. So it's Transfigurations, Season 3, Disc 7, Episode 173, Captain's Overview. We are charting an unexplored star system within the Zeta Gallus cluster. This routine assignment has made for a refreshingly quiet time aboard the Enterprise. Our first scene is in 10 forward. Geordi says, "That's her." Worf says, "Which one?" Geordi says, "The one on the right," and tells Worf not to stare. "Do I feel like I'm in high school?" "Hey, look, he just walked in." "No, don't look, he'll see you." Are we in high school? It feels like high school. When the girl walks in the room, or the boy walks in the room, and your friend goes, "Well, which one?" And you're like, don't look. I don't want him to know we're looking. These guys are adults. Worf says, "Why not?" Geordi says, "Because she'll see." Worf says, "That's good. You must let her see the fire in your eyes." Geordi's got a visor. You can't see his eyes. And you know, way back, what is it, season 2? Dr. Pulaski offered to fix him for him. This poor guy has had to walk around with this thing on his face for 3 years now, possibly 7. Geordi, so Worf says, "You must let her see the fire in the eyes." What eyes? Geordi then says, "But what would I say?" And I'm sitting there going, he's asking a Klingon for dating information. A Klingon for dating information. We know how Klingons date. They don't date like the rest of us. They do a bunch of growling and biting and sniffing and other things. Worf says, "Words come later. It is the sense that first speaks of love." Uh-huh. Again, we're asking a Klingon for dating information. Uh, Worf said, Geordi says, thanks a lot, Worf. That helps. So the girl in question comes to the bar and stands next to Geordi to get new drinks. And she opens the whole thing up, presents the situation, and Geordi just acts like he's 2 years old and like, yeah, okay, yes, yes, uh-huh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The girl in question comes to the bar and stands next to Geordi to get new drinks, and Geordi is all tongue-tied and shy. Christy says hi. He says hi. Christy says, so how have you been? Geordi says, good. Christy says, how are things down in engineering? Geordi says, fine. They have been fine. Good Lord. She's trying so hard to get him to have a convo, and he's so tongue-tied and twisted up. She's like, all right, whatever. Well, see you around. Worf says, I have much to teach you about women. Then Geordi is paged to transporter room 3. I'm like, good grief. Okay. The next scene, they're in the hallway, and Riker is explaining that sensors have discovered a small one-man spaceship crashed on a planet. Dr. Crusher says we have picked up life signs, humanoid, very faint and fading. I don't want to be on camera, Mommy. I don't want to be on camera. I don't like being on camera. Oh, good grief. My turn. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. So they beam down to the planet. Data says radiation levels within acceptable limits. Then they find the guy. Dr. Crusher examines him. Geordi says we can beam him out from under there and get him right up to sickbay. Dr. Crusher says he's not stable enough for transport. There is damage to the brainstem. Automatic functions are failing. His heart needs active neural feedback. It can't regulate itself. I need a volunteer. So Geordi volunteers. And she takes this thing and she puts it on the guy's head and she puts it on Dr. Crusher's, Geordi's head. And there's like a beam of light thingy. So Dr. Crusher says, I'm going to hook up your nervous system to the tricorder. Your brain will regulate both systems. That should stabilize him long enough to get him up to the ship. She puts the thing on Geordi and tells him to take regular breaths. If anything goes wrong, I'll break the connection. There's a beam of light that goes from the victim to Geordi. Geordi says he's fine, no problem. Dr. Crusher then orders transporter room to beam them directly to sickbay. After opening credits, we are in sickbay. Dr. Crusher is saying automatic responses are still low. Begin cardio stimulation. 60 GCs of whatever. Massive infection and setting in the use of photon dynamo plasma to stabilize the immune system. We need to design a virus that can infiltrate a cell structure and boost his ATP production. The lady asks about Commander LaForge. He's in the waiting diagnostic center. Dr. Crusher says, I need you to give him a full bioscan. See if there's any residual effect from the emergency discharge during the hookup. Keep his arm in cryogenic stasis until the vital signs are strong enough for surgical procedure. The next scene is on the bridge. Riker is saying from the size and shape of the wreck, it appeared to be some kind of escape pod. The control system was badly damaged, which is probably what caused the crash. Captain Buscar's an escape pod. Then they should not have traveled very far. Mr. Data, are there any other signs of ships in the area? Data says he's picking up a scattering of debris in an extended orbit around the planet. It reads as refined metals and other synthetic compounds. Picard says the remains of a larger vessel. He must have left in the pod before the ship was destroyed. Worf says sensors show trace elements in the debris that would indicate phaser fire was recently engaged. Picard asks, where are we able to salvage anything out of the escape pod? Riker points to the clear object Picard is holding, saying this was all that was left of their computer system. Picard says, Mr. Data, can you access it? Data says it will take time, sir. Downloading this into our system will require fabrication of a matrix translator to emulate the alien's computer system. Picard says, keep me apprised of your progress, and gives Data the object. Nurse says limb refusion is successful and tissue oxygenation is within norms. Dr. Crusher says that's all we can do for now. What? You don't like Star Trek? Go on. We won't be able to test neuromuscular function for a few days. Geordi comes in and asks if he can go now. Dr. Crusher said, no need to keep you here. Your bioscans came out negative. Geordi says, could have told you that. I feel great. Captain Picard then comes in and asks, how is your patient? Dr. Crusher says she did not think he would make it this far. There was major trauma to his head and chest cavity, massive plasma loss, and severe damage to most of his organs. Picard says, what are his chances? Dr. Crusher says, I believe he's going to live. I'm afraid I can't take credit for it, though. His body seems to have amazing recuperative powers. The damaged tissue seems to be repairing itself at a phenomenal rate. There is one thing that troubles me, though. Picard asks, what is that? She shows him cell regeneration. Dr. Crusher says yes, but the thing is, it has nothing to do with the injuries. These are undamaged cells that seem to be mutating. Picard asks, do you have a theory as to the cause? Dr. Crusher says, no, I've never seen anything like it in my life. She says there is a possibility that is a part of his natural healing process. I hope it is, because there's nothing I can do to stop it. Alright, the next scene, Data, Geordi, and Worf are in 10 forward. Geordi says, I'm telling you, Data, there's got to be some way to decode the information in this thing. Data says, I agree, Geordi, but the data matrix within the capsule does not correspond to any standard format. All we have is the device contains a chemically based system for molecular energy encoding. Geordi says, and the computer still can't analyze the specific chemical elements involved. It's got to be part of the data processing system. Geordi says, what if it's a feedback loop controller? Data says the compact shape does suggest a rapid chemical processing and storage capacity. Geordi says, we found it near the escape pod instrumentation assemblage. This capsule might process the ship's dynamic motions and augment its manual control inputs. We could send it a few test signals. Make it the entire assemblage was awake and operating. Data says it's an intriguing experiment. The capsule might provide us with information without the need to decode the storage medium itself. Perhaps we should examine your theory immediately. Worf is like so bored during this whole thing. He's giving them looks, sideways, frontwards, backwards. Worf says, we came here to relax. Geordi says, I am relaxed. In fact, I've never felt better. What are you doing? Okay. Help the child out there. Geordi sees Christy and she waves to him, and he says, you know what, Worf? The store capsule can wait a while. He goes over to Christy and asks her if she's leaving. She says she was on her way to the arboretum. Geordi asks if she would care for some company. Christy says, I'd love some, but I didn't think you were interested in that kind of thing. Geordi says, there's a lot of things you don't know about me. So Christy and Geordi leave. They show Data and Worf at the table, and Worf says he's been tutoring Geordi. He learns very quickly. My God. That is too cute. That is just too cute. Geordi and Christy. Now, is Christy the same one from the holodeck of last season or earlier in this season that he was trying to impress and he was trying really too hard with all that music? That was her, right? The next scene is sickbay. Dr. Crusher is given her medical log. She's removed patient John Doe from the emergency bio support unit in 36 hours. Most of his major organs have repaired themselves, have regenerated themselves to the point where they can now function on their own. He wakes up. He says, I'm alive. She says, you certainly are. He says, thank you for my life. Who am I? The next scene, we get a little captain's log. Our mission to map the Zeta Gallus star cluster is proceeding on schedule. Meanwhile, Dr. Crusher reports that the recovery of the patient she named John Doe continues at a remarkable pace. All right, then we are back in sick bay. He says that you and your she's doing some testing and asks him if he's experiencing any discomfort. He says, no, I can feel the life returning to my body. Dr. Crusher says your neurofibro waves are functioning almost normally again. That puts you about 6 weeks ahead of my original schedule. He says that should give you and your colleagues something to talk about. Dr. Crusher says you've all we've talked about since you've arrival. He says, believe me, I'm ready for the next phase of my treatment. You are right, she says. It's about time you start taking up valuable bed space. Now these motor assist bands will provide you with electronic stimulation for your arms and legs. They will help you to relearn how to control your muscles again. Remember, you've been off your feet for almost a month, so don't be disappointed if at your first mobility is restricted, your limbs are still weak. He says, I appreciate your concern, but I think I may surprise you again. I feel strong enough to fly. I never hear her call the nurse by name, ever. But she's an extra. She got paid and she did great. She was excellent. She was an extra. But they never called her by name. Captain Picard walks in the room and sees John Doe up on his feet walking, and he falls and Captain Picard picks him up. He says Captain Picard has good reflexes. Go on. Captain Picard says, I envy your strength of will. Dr. Crusher has been keeping me informed of your progress. It's really quite extraordinary. John Doe says he says, I have an extraordinary doctor. She gave me back my life. I hope that I am worthy of her efforts. Captain Picard asks him if he's still unable to recall any of his past. John Doe goes to sit down. Unfortunately, Captain, my memories begin in the moment I woke up in sickbay. Dr. Crusher told me you think I was in some sort of battle. Captain Picard says we are quite sure of that. You have any idea how you came to be in that escape pod or what happened to the ship? John Doe says, no, believe me, Captain, it's a horrifying feeling not knowing who you are, where you're from. Captain Picard asked the doctor if she had tried synaptic induction. Dr. Crusher says his neural nets don't conform to any known patterns. Conventional neurotherapy has proven ineffective. Hopefully, in time, his memory pathways will reestablish themselves naturally. Dr. Crusher gives him some pain medicine. John Doe says, I think I made enough progress for one day. Captain Picard says, not a relapse, I hope. Dr. Crusher says, this has nothing to do with his previous wounds. I think it has something to do with the continuing mutation of his cell structure. Captain Picard says, you still don't have no theory as to what is causing it. Dr. Crusher says it doesn't make any sense. John Doe says, I seem to be a mystery to you, to myself, and to the doctor. Okay, so if you're getting intimate with somebody, you take off your glasses, right? Doesn't his visor get in the way? I don't know. It just doesn't have that ring of truth in it. And I still think, if Dr. Pulaski could have given him his eyesight back, he should have went for it. I feel bad for him, LeVar Burton, walking around with that thing on his face all the time. I guess he got used to it. So after all the mushy stuff, and Christy leaves, Riker asks Geordi about Christy Henshaw have been seeing a lot of each other. Geordi says yes, every night this week. Riker says, "Is that all? I thought you'd been walking around with that smile on your face a lot longer than that." Geordi says, "Well, I guess I have. This whole last month or so, everything seems to be going my way. I don't know what it is, but something sure has changed around here." Riker says, "The only thing that's changed is you." Geordi says, "Me, I'm the same old guy I always was." Riker says, "If you say so. I don't remember the old Geordi having this much success with Miss Christie Henshaw." Geordi says, "Maybe I'm a little more confident than I used to be." Lovey-dovey. I just wish Riker and Troy would get together, don't you? We'll talk about that later. Okay, next we're back in sickbay. O'Brien shows up with an arm injury. He tells Dr. Crusher he was kayaking on the holodeck again. Dr. Crusher examines him and says he's dislocated his shoulder. She tells him to sit down and she goes to get the osteo-tractor frame. Then Wesley walks in and asks her if they are still on for dinner tonight. She says yes, 7:30. Wesley talks to John Doe and he tells Wesley Dr. Crusher will give him a tour of the ship tomorrow. He says, "You may find this hard to believe, but sickbay can be an incredibly boring place to be." Well, duh. Anybody knows that. A hospital is the most boringest place to be in the whole wide world. John Doe goes over to O'Brien and touches his shoulder, and light appears. "Charmed, anyone?" And the shoulder is healed. Dr. Crusher examines the shoulder and says it's completely healed. She doesn't understand. Dr. Crusher asks John Doe, "What did you do?" John said, "It was just instinct. I just touched him." Dr. Crusher is having dinner with Wesley. She's saying that she has run every test and scan on him that she can think of, and yet there's no physical evidence to indicate that he would possess such powers. But then there's so much about John that's a mystery. Wesley says, "You know, I really like him." Dr. Crusher says he does have a certain charm, doesn't he? The entire medical staff has commented on it. Wesley says, "You seem a little taken with him yourself." Dr. Crusher says he has a strength and serenity that I find very attractive, and yet he is vulnerable. I guess I find him intriguing. Wesley says, "Seems like there's a little more to it than that." Dr. Crusher says, "Is that why you're asking me if I'm getting romantically involved?" Wesley says, "You said it, I didn't." Dr. Crusher says, "My feelings towards him are not romantic exactly. I mean, I know that doctor-patient relationships can sometimes create a false sense of intimacy, but this is different. There is almost a spiritual connection. I guess I'm not making any sense, am I?" Wesley says, "I think I understand." Next scene, Geordi, we're back on the bridge. Geordi goes to Data and says, I was thinking about the storage capsule last night, and I was wondering, what if we have been going about this the wrong way? We have been trying to analyze its mechanical properties. What if it's a biochemical storage medium? Data says, "You are suggesting that it employs memory RNA like an organic cell." Geordi says, "Well, it does contain quantities of nucleic acids." Data says, "Perhaps the information sequences are encoded in the molecular patterns themselves." Geordi has computer scan the storage capsule, analyze molecular sequence and nucleic acid chains, and a navigational chart comes up. Data says, "It appears your hypothesis was correct." Geordi says he knew it and he calls the captain. Picard says, "Have you found something?" Data says, "We have determined that the storage capsule from John Doe's escape pod contained navigational information." Picard asks if he could match these stars to our charts. Data asks the computer to run a transformational matrix calculation. Match navigational references to known stars in this sector. The computer tells him the information on this sector is incomplete, no correlation. Geordi says he's not giving up yet, not after coming so close to cracking this thing. "You know, that might be flight path information from John's ship, but without a frame of reference, I can't determine its origin points." Data says, "Computer, assume those paths are course navigations and derive gravitational values from stellar objects near those flights paths." Are you okay down there? Okay. Okay. She's all curled up at my feet. Um, Let's see. Data says computer assume these paths are course corrections derived from rational values for stellar objects near those flight paths. Data says most of these are ordinary G-type stars and points to a neutron star, possibly a pulsar. Geordie points to stuff and says this might be a rotational time reference. Data says that computer assume these symbols are pulsars. Translate associated values into standard temporal notations. Then the data asks if there's a pulsar with a rotation of 15244 seconds with sensor range. Computer says affirmative. Geordie says computer to overlay navigational chart using reference pulsar and a projected flight path to its origin. Computer says flight originated at bearing 03 Mach 015, distance 2.3 parsecs. Geordie says that's it. That's where John Doe came from. Data says that bearing is almost directly along our planned course, sir. Picard says good, then we can continue our mission without significant interruption. Picard goes to tell John Doe that they have figured out where he lives. Using the information we found in your escape pod, we may be able to return you to your people. All right, go. John says, I cannot go back. Picard says, why is that? John Doe says, you must not take me home, Captain. Dr. Crusher says, has your memory returned? John says, all I know is that when we came out here to escape. Picard says, escape? Dr. Crusher says, there were others with you? John says, yes, I was not alone. But what happened to the others or what we were escaping from, I do not remember, but I do know that you must not take me back, not yet. Picard says we will not arrive in your star system for at least 3 weeks. That will give us plenty of time to discuss this further. Dr. Crusher says hopefully by then you will have regained more of your memory. John Doe says you are right, of course, Captain. I apologize for my outburst. Picard says it's understandable. A bright light covers John Doe after everyone leaves. Next we are in 10 forward. John Doe says remarkable. Dr. Crusher says what is? John Doe says these people, there are so many different from one another and yet they work together freely. Dr. Crusher says that surprises you. John Doe says it's new to me. My people are different somehow. If only I could remember. Yesterday for one terrifying moment there was clarity. Dr. Crusher says you mean the energy pulse? John Doe says yes. For that moment my purpose seemed clear and then it was gone. Dr. Crusher says the pain, the energy pulse must be linked to the cell mutation in your body. Oh, I wish I could help you find the truth. John Doe says, Beverly, you have done so much for me. I wish there was some way I could repay you. Dr. Crusher says you have. The friendship we have developed has made me very happy. John Doe says the rapport that exists between us also means a great deal to me, but I am on some kind of journey. Whatever brought me here, whatever is kind to my body is all part of the journey. I must complete it before any consideration. How many times did she practice that walk? Hey, you're an extra, no lines, you get your pure Star Trek uniform, and you get to walk across the bridge. And you get paid for it. You get paid for just walking across the bridge. How cool is that? And again, you get bragging rights. You get lots of bragging rights. Oh, there's another one, we'll get to it. Worf says he is reading a vessel on long-range scanners. It's coming from sector 9569. Picard asks what configuration. Worf says impossible to identify at this distance. However, it is on an intercept course. Data says the ship is traveling at warp 9.7. Picard says time to intercept. Data says at present course and speed 10 hours 53 minutes. Picard asks Worf to try and hail them. Worf says no response. Picard says keep monitoring their approach and repeat the hail every half hour. Riker says whoever they are, they're in a big hurry to get here. Next scene, we're back in sickbay. John Doe is sitting at a computer terminal when a burst of internal light causes him to fall to the floor. A nurse walks in and says, Dr. Crusher, medical emergency, room 4. John Doe says, I can't make it stop. Dr. Crusher, tell me, is it worse than before? John Doe says, much worse. The nurse says, should I get something for the pain? Dr. Crusher says, no, the readings are fluctuating too wildly. Besides, it wouldn't do any good. His entire cell structure is transforming. John Doe says, I have to leave Beverly. Dr. Crusher says, where do you have to go? John Doe says, I must get off the ship. Dr. Crusher says, that's impossible, not in your condition. John Doe says, I must. He lights up and leaves the room and runs to the shuttle bay. Okay, the next scene is in the shuttle bay. Geordi is working with two other people and is saying, let's realign the magnetic inducer on the starboard nacelle. John Doe goes into the shuttle bay and lights up. Worf tells him to leave the control booth immediately. He opens the bay doors. Worf enters the room. Beverly tries to talk him down. You must come down. I'll try to help you. Worf tells him to step away from the control panels. Worf says he has no wish to harm him, but he must return to sickbay. John Doe tells him to stay back. The lightning pulses and Worf falls off the balcony. Dr. Crusher says his neck is broken, no life signs. Sickbay for recitation room. I have a code 7 in bay 2. She's upset. Worf is down. Go on. I should talk to Kellis about you. Karen does better with Kellis than I do with John Doe comes down and heals him completely. We are in the captain's ready room. Picard says, you were trying to steal a shuttlecraft. John Doe says yes. Picard says, so I ask you again why. John says, I don't know. Picard says, that's unacceptable. You had a reason. I want to know what it was. Damn it, you nearly killed a member of my crew. Dr. Crusher says, and healed him. Picard says, I am not forgetting that. That's the reason why he's here and not in the brig. John Doe says, I warned him. I told him it was dangerous. Picard said, why? Why was it dangerous? What is happening to you? John Doe says, I don't know. Dr. Crusher says the rate of metamorphosis is accelerating. It's almost as if your body is generating an electrical field that's warping the tissue. But quite as who you are, what you are, John Doe says, I'm afraid for myself, for all of you. I have to isolate myself. Whatever is happening to me, it's dangerous. As Lieutenant Worf discovered, I don't want to hurt anyone, Captain. For the sake of your crew, let me go before this happens again. Dr. Crusher, I don't believe, John, I don't believe you're capable of harming anyone. Captain, the alien vessel is coming with weapon range. Shields up, I'm on my way. I want him kept under surveillance. Geordi walks up to John Doe and says, I really want to thank you. John Doe says, for what? Geordi says, I don't know how or even why, but down on the planet you gave me something. Well, a new confidence. I doubt I can take credit for that, John Doe says. Perhaps I only helped you find something you already had. Captain, on-screen alien vessel is approaching. Half impulse. My first question, where's Wesley? We got an extra. Who gives looks the whole time? He's like, he just looks like, like those are the bad guys type situation. He just keeps giving looks. Picard says to raid shields, go to 1/3 impulse power. Tells Mr. Worf to hail the alien vessel. He says they continue to ignore our hails. Data says they are scanning us. Worf says they are answering our hail. Picard says on screen. So it looks like a military type group. Picard says if John Doe knows him, and he says yes. I don't know how, but I know he is dangerous. The guy says, I am Commander Sunad of Zulcom. You are trespassing in our space and you are holding a Zirconian citizen. Picard introduces himself. We do not intend to transgression. Sunad says you return him immediately to us. Picard says, Sunad, this individual is a great guest aboard our ship. We found him dying at a shipwreck. We returned him to. Then you aided a criminal. He is one of 4 escaped prisoners. We eliminated the other 3. We thought this one dead as well. Return him to us so we may complete our task. Picard says, what is he accused of? Sunad says he's disruptive influence. He spreads lies. He encourages dissent. He disturbs the natural order of society. Picard says, in what way? Sunad says, that's not your concern. I'll give you 2 hours to comply. And it sounds like political dissent. You know, someone's doing something, you know, in this country you can do it. Everybody has their own beliefs. You can't kill anybody for it, but you can speak about it. And apparently John Doe's crew has been speaking, and apparently in his country you're not allowed to speak about it or do anything about it. And they don't like if you go against the dictatorship there. So then they have a conference. Is he trying to look stern? Is he trying to give that stern, disapproving look? I don't know why. I know it just, the whole scene is just, I just noticed. So this Sunad threatens the Enterprise and says, I'll give you 2 hours. So Picard asks Troy, do they mean to carry out their threat? And Troy says, I believe so. Sunad's hatred for John was evident, but there's something else. The Zirconians are afraid of John. Picard says, Commander Riker counts the doctor, and they go into his ready room. Data tells Data he has the bridge and tells Worf to counter any moves that Zirconian makes. Riker, John Doe says, I can neither confirm nor deny what the Zirconians told you. Riker says they are making serious accusations against you. I don't know. I don't believe I'm criminal. You understand the difficult position in which I am placed completely, and I refuse to place your ship in danger. If necessary, I will surrender to them. But I am convinced there is more at stake here than my life. There is something important I must complete. My survival is vital. If I could explain it, I would. Picard says, I will inform you of my decision, and John Doe leaves the room. Captain, you can't seriously considering. Picard says, we must consider all options, Doctor, and not let our personal feelings impede our judgment. Dr. Crusher says, you are going to tell me it's irrelevant that we'll be sending him to his death. Picard says, whether we approve his Zirconian intentions, it's not the issue, but what it's worth, I believe that John is correct. That his existence has broader ramifications than a very simple criminal Sunad thinks so. He personally feels threatened by John Doe, Troy says. Sunad called him a disruptive influence. Dr. Crusher says that's hardly a capital offense. Picard says it's not up to us to judge their laws. Riker says, I know how I would feel if the situation were reversed if they were in our territory holding a Federation citizen. Troy says the Zirconians truly don't understand our indecision about returning John Doe. Troy says, in their eyes, we shouldn't be involved. Dr. Crusher says, but we are involved. I saved his life for what? So they could chase him down and take his life away. Next scene, Picard says, Sunad says, we will not tolerate more delays. Picard says, Commander, let me remind you that we are on a mission of exploration. I propose to establish peaceful relations with civilizations we encounter. Sunad says, we do not want relations with you. Picard says that if you wish, we will respect it. Sunad says, we simply want you to leave Silicon space as soon as you return the criminal. Commander, we will leave it as soon. It is not our policy to intervene in the affairs of other cultures, but before I return the survivor to you, I would appreciate a more detailed explanation of what he has merit a death sentence. Sunad says, I said it's not your concern. Agreed, however, there are circumstances of which you may not be aware. The survivor suffered a memory loss, therefore ill-equipped to defend himself against your accusation. Sunad says, that is not a concern. Our judgment is final. Picard says something else. Since his recovery, he has manifested unusual abilities. Sunad says, what kind of abilities? Picard says, apparently has the ability to heal injuries with a simple touch. Sunad says, lies. And even to reverse death itself. Picard says, sooner, obviously he has corrupted you as well. I am wasting my time. Oh. I just wanted to say, I like his looks of pretending to be attentive. That's all. Suned does something, and the entire ship starts having breathing problems. So he heals Dr. Crusher first. They heal the guy in the hallway. Then he touches his hand to the ship, and he heals the entire ship. Get to the bridge. Suned says, "Prepare all weapons." John says, "You will no longer harm these people." Suned fire upon that ship. Suned says, "John Doe transfer soon. Add to the Enterprise. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Don't kill him, Captain. He's evil. You could learn a lot from these people." As soon as John Doe says, "They do not fear me. They know how dangerous you are." Suned says, "You and the others like you. That's what it was you and the others wanted people to believe, have maintained for generations. But it's not true, Captain. My species is on the verge of a wondrous evolutionary change of transformation. Beyond a physical being, I am the first of my kind to approach this metamorphosis. They tried to convince us it was a sickness. We would never survive. The pain and energy pulses would kill us. They claimed we were dangerous, so they destroyed anyone who exhibited the signs of the Transfiguration. Suned says we were protecting our society by murdering us. You saw the mutations as a threat to your authority. You were terrified of something you couldn't understand. Suned suspected that what was happening to them was not evil. The four of us decided to flee Sukhan and let the Metamorphosis take its course. You hunted us down, killed the others, but I survived. With the help of a generous people." John Doe gives a full light there. "There is nothing to fear," he says. "You can join me. All Sunconians can let you know." Soon it says, "Don't touch me." He returns Sunad to the ship, and so he becomes this healing white lighter. He says, "My people are about to embark on a new realm, a new plane of existence. Thanks to you, it's our mission to seek out life in all forms." Jean Picard says, "We are privileged to have been present at the emergence of a new species. Beverly, you give me life, and I do not have the words for my gratitude nor my sorrow in leaving you." And that's the end of the episode. So if you've made it this far, it's a miracle. My analytics say you didn't last more than 2 minutes. But if you made it this far, please hit the like and subscribe. We just finished Transfigurations, and next week we will start part 1, Best of Both Worlds. The Borg are coming! The Borg! That's going to be a very long episode. The Borg are coming! Thumbs up, like and subscribe. Thank you.